What's up, everybody? Look, I wanted to make a little video. It's only 6 a.m. here, and it is rather chilly out here in Cancun, but I wanted to just come out here and just make a quick video about something I was thinking about that I feel like it taught me a lot of lessons in the last 2 bull markets I was a part of, and I think it could be beneficial to you. And so while we are out here and while we are doing these trips, I like to just put a lot of thought into like my strategies and what I want to do and how I'm going to approach this market. And so let's go ahead and talk about it a bit. So one of the things that I learned in 2021's bull market and the 2017 bull market when I was approaching the stock market was that in these markets, there are cyclical small sub niches that do well for set periods of time, okay? Set periods of time. So for example, you're gonna see something like a crypto gaming do well for a set period of time. You're gonna see things like L1s do well for a set period of time. The Solana ecosystem do well for a set period of time. It's just going to be boom, 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 right? The liquidity is gonna flow from one to the next, to the next, to the next. Now, the issue with that is that oftentimes the approach that people take whenever they're trying to capitalize on these narratives is to wait to see what the next one's gonna be that pops up. Okay, what's gonna be the next one? Is it gaming? Is it L1s? Is it launch pads? Is it pre-sales? Whatever it may be, right? And the issue with that is that oftentimes you catching that narrative at the beginning of the narrative is so little, so small. The likelihood is so tiny. You're probably gonna get around the 50% threshold. The good part about that means that you have that 50 to 80% threshold where you're gonna make some good money. For example, if you got into Solana about 3 weeks ago, the Solana ecosystem, and you caught that 50% threshold, you probably made good money over the last couple weeks. But now you're starting to notice things like Myro, things like Bonk, they're all starting to pull back, and it might be the end of this little crazy cycle for Solana for the time being, right? And that happens a lot of the time is that people follow the narratives, and when they follow the narrative, they get in a little bit late and they'll make gains, and they'll lose half of those gains or a lot of those gains because they're getting more confident in that narrative, and then they go chase the next narrative. And like I said, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to try to follow the narrative and to try to get in on these narratives because you're putting yourself in a position in which you can make gains off of the place that gains are being made, right? So there is a benefit to that. But what I noticed in 2017, which was a little bit less applicable to this because it was a stock market and there's a lot less niches in the stock market, but then 2020 and 2021 with the crypto market that I really noticed was that whenever you can get ahead of these narratives, that's generally when you're going to do the best, and that's generally when you can beat these markets. Now, the way you get ahead of these narratives is the good part is, and the way that you can get ahead of these narratives is that this market is maturing. Okay, and the fact that this market is maturing puts us in a position in which a lot of the narratives within crypto are already established. Things like crypto gaming, things like move to earn, things like launch pads, things like L1s. Just think of these different narratives that we've had. And yes, we do have new narratives, right? We have the AI narrative that has just recently really gained some momentum within the space, but even that was somewhat older, right? We do have new narratives, but for the most part, a lot of the narratives that will do well within the world of crypto are already here, and they've already had some cycles. Crypto gaming, the biggest narrative in my opinion that crypto will probably ever see, has already had its cycle. Look at November of 2021, December, and the times where, you know, Decentraland and all those ones are doing extremely well, Sandbox and whatever you can think of, right? That time, those cycles that we've seen historically are going to repeat themselves at some point in this bull market. So what I want you to go ahead and do, if you're tired of like chasing narratives, what I want you to go look and do is think, okay, 2 things. First of all, what are some narratives that happened in 2021 and 2022 that are still viable to happen in 2024? For example, we saw a mini crypto gaming narrative, like kind of growth in the last 2 months, roughly, right? A lot of your crypto gamings, like your CETA5s and those ones, they did extremely well, but that wasn't a real cycle, right? That wasn't like a real actual market. That was just a little micro mini cycle that we saw for crypto gaming, just kind of like an appetizer in my opinion. So I would go ahead back and look at that and think, crypto gaming did extremely well at the end of the bull market. It's now well established and it's now in a position which is probably going to be able to do well. That's a narrative that I want to try to get ahead of. That's a narrative that I want to try to put my bids in, find good cryptos, find good companies, find good chains and things of that nature, and put your bids into them now, and don't wait for it to hit crypto gaming before you put it in. Try to get into that narrative ahead of time. It's like Solana, for example. We played the long game with the Solana ecosystem, but you guys know we had been looking at these Solana tokens, investing in the Solana itself, doing things like that before Solana was, you know, but when Solana was at $16 or $20, so that when the time comes, we're ready. Then we hit a Myro at 2 cents. Then we hit a Myro at 1.5 cents or whatever it was. Get a 10x, get a 15x, get a 10, 15x on Bonk, get a 6x on WIF, things of that nature, right? That's how you capitalize on it. You get into these narratives prior to them gaining momentum. And so the easiest way you can do this, like I mentioned before, go look at 2021 and find the narratives that did extremely well. I'm gonna post a full report down in HG Access and for my Patreon members down below, letting them know the different narratives that I'm currently looking at, placing placing bids in to see if we do well. And then the next thing that you can do is look at some of these brand new narratives, okay? If there was any narratives that happened in the last year that were brand new, AI is a beautiful example. AI did extremely well, but we were in a bear market and it had to kind of relax a little bit. That is a narrative that I think is still going to last, but it's going through its liquidity cycle. Everything has ebbs and flows and things are gonna do well and not do well. And so the easiest thing you can do, look at those new narratives and think, okay, likelihood is it's probably going to gain momentum again at some given point. Look for those new ones within that sector. Look for the ones that are gaining the most momentum, doing the most building right now while they're not doing well, like AI, for example, because when the bull market does flourish, when liquidity enters the market completely, when we are in an altcoin season, when Bitcoin dominance is taking, that's going to be the time in which those new narratives catch their second wind, okay? So go find those narratives that we've seen historically that have done well and not done well. Go find the ones from 2021, 2020, the ones that caught momentum, and start placing your bids in them now, because the likelihood is, again, we're going to see that money flow back into them at some given point, and a lot of companies have been building since then, okay? So I hope that helps you. Don't chase, you can chase the narrative if you want, but you need to be good at getting ahead of it. You need to be good at being able to be one of the first two, 1 or 2 weeks into that thing, because again, if you get in around the middle, you're probably gonna end up losing at some point once we hit the end of it. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know if that made sense. If not, I can make a bit of a clearer video on it, but I think you kind of get the point that I'm making here. Again, I'm going to post my full narrative play breakdown down in HD Access, so go ahead and check that out down below if you'd like, and I will see you all next time. Peace out, everybody.